Alright, you saw the title of the video, it's a Unicorn Overlord tier list, and I mean, cutting right to the chase, here it is. Of course, we're gonna have Yana, you know, look at her hips, look at her animation sprite, S tier. Berengaria, have you heard her voice? And then of course we have Rosalinda up here because, you know, dark chocolate over white chocolate. I mean, you know, to each their own. And then of course we have Virginia because, you know, sometimes you gotta keep the family bloodline pure. Let's just put it like that. And of course, lastly in S tier we have Scarlet because it's like the canonical, oh, childhood friend and stuff like that. Our mom, it feels weird. So we put it in a separate tier, and of course all the ew, yucky, gross men are down here at the bottom, which I guess, you know, maybe you can do a separate tier list for them as well, but I felt like I just grouped them all together. I'm pretty sure these are all the men, right? Yeah. Aramis does throw me for a loop every now and then, but yeah, he's a man. I will not elaborate any further on any of these, just know that this is all 100% correct. Okay, but for real though, the actual tier list we're gonna do is this one here for the classes. Now, these all list the promoted versions of the classes, so what I'll try and do is, I didn't want to go too in depth on classes and stuff like that in my previous video on Unicorn Overlord, because I feel like it's kind of difficult, right? No single class is that overpowered. It's all about the units and how they are formed, right? And how you use the classes with others to form something nice. Also, classes have different viability during different periods of the game. As an example, before being promoted, some classes aren't that great, or even depending on where you are in the game, you know, in what region you are in, certain classes are different. In fact, I know one comment did mention, you know, they would have preferred if in the tips video I gave region specific for, oh, when you're in like the Bestorius region, you should do this, this, and this. So I'll try and do that here as well. Now, I will admit, I have played the game on expert, although I only did one playthrough, so I did not use all of the characters. So I'll try and give my biased opinion. Of course, you are welcome to argue and disagree, because I mean, you know, that's the whole point of the internet, right? The whole point of the internet is to argue with people. Okay, but first things first, I have to put all of the uniques in their own separate category, because they are just, they're uniques. They have to go differently. So all the uniques will go in a different category. I'll move them up at the bottom. I'll move them up to the top at the end. But this is for people who like sort of skip ahead in the video. They'll see all the uniques at the bottom and be like, wait, what? Why is that F tier? Oh my goodness, how could he do this? And then they'll watch the video, so. Aha. Alright, but I think that is everyone. So, first things first, I'm not going to go in alphabetical order because I'm going to go off of what sticks out to me the most. And immediately, Druids. Druids, I said this in the other video, but just their debuffs and stuff like that, they enable so much. They can go into literally any team. They can strengthen a team by forcing somebody to have lower defenses, forcing them to not be able to guard blocking, so good. You can also burn an entire row, you can lower their attacks for an entire row, you can lower the initiative as well. It's just, Druids are so good. Sure, they may not do as much damage, but they enable so much, so that's why they're absolutely S tier. Sword Masters, unfortunately for me, are gonna be a C tier because their whole gimmick is they do like, you know, like their crit rates and stuff like that, but crit rate multipliers aren't the best in the game. And also, the downside about Sword Masters is that they can equip 2 swords, but they only get the stats from the highest sword, the attack stat. They still get the bonus effects, but it feels like a waste, right? Maybe have that as a separate accessory slot at least, or give them the attack from the other sword as well. It leaves a lot to be desired for, something that you would think of as an attacking DPS unit. Also, they're only single targets, which also makes it a bit eh. But next up though, speaking of damage and stuff like that, where is it? Something that I wasn't expecting to be that strong until I promoted them is the shield shooter. For me, they're an S tier. They have the utility or the damage of an archer of a ranged class that has really good damage, but not only do they have giant ass great shield, so 75% blocked, and they also have support in that they can heal and even give aid cover, right? So they do damage, they have utility in the form of healing and protecting, and they can also tank themselves, which is very important because every now and then you might find yourself having to put a shield shooter on the front line for whatever reason, and they can take those hits actually. Yes, they don't get innate, what is it called, like sharpshooter to guarantee a true strike, but I mean, there are items that can cover that. Speaking of true strike and stuff like that, a regular sniper, it feels towards the like early on in the game, I'd say maybe they're okay. They can help out with those nasty thieves and flyers, but towards the later end of the game, when you get these other ranged options, such as the shield shooter, as well as I'll get the elven archer as well, the sniper just starts to fall off a little bit. Speaking of I think I'll move the sniper down to C actually and put the elven archer in B, because elven archer likewise does good damage and is a bit more on the supportive side in that they have start a battle thing where it literally prevents your entire team from getting debuffed, which is incredibly useful, I will say this now, incredibly useful for Albion, the Holy Land, because the the rangers on their side can inflict blindness, and blindness overwrites True Strike. So even if you have True Strike, you still miss with blind. However, Elven Archers, if they can provide everybody with the debuff immunity for one round or for one affliction, you can counteract that. Also, they have magic conferral, so they sort of have that utility that the sorceresses normally have, so they can also enable more damage themselves. Speaking of sorceresses and witches, I never really found them to be that much in terms of the damage department, but I am putting them at A purely for their Valor skill. The teleport is just so strong for me. Having that mobility is just worth an A tier at least. Like literally, there were times where I put a witch in my unit purely for teleport. They did no damage whatsoever. They maybe threw on a magic conferral or something. Otherwise, they were just there for the utility. But if we're going to talk about mages, we also have to talk about warlocks. Warlocks are alright. I mean, early on in the game, you're absolutely going to use a warlock, or I had to say warlock, the regular classes then, because of that crazy combination of the stuff that you get from Orc, where once somebody's burned, you can literally just light up an entire unit. That will carry you a lot in the early game for your magic damage, which again, maybe Sniper does deserve a little bit higher, but again, the issue with this type of tier listing is items are what are OP, not the units. So I mentioned bumping Sniper up, but technically speaking, it's not Sniper, it's the Flame Bow. There are other characters that can inflict burns, even the Warlock themselves can inflict burn. But for Warlock specifically as well, only they can equip that item for the AoE burn from Orc's quest. So I feel like they deserve to be A tier. It does mean though that you can only use it on one character because there's only one of those items. But again, in the early game, it'll carry you, it'll be fine. Speaking of items being OP though, Wyvern Master, it's difficult. I want to put them in S tier because of Dragoon Dive, but again, that is an item, not the class, but also the item is sort of specific for Wyverns anyway. But this is generic Wyvern Masters, so with Dragoon Dive, they're S, without it, they're an A, because they still have utility in being able to drop the opponent's initiative with their starting skill. They can also do some good, AoE damage, like line and column damage, even without the Dragoon Dive, so I'll put them in A, because again, this is in general. If you have a single Wyvern Master, they are S, but if you want to have multiple and recruit multiple generics, then they're really A only. Speaking of flyers though, where is the other flyer? Griffin Masters. Griffin Masters also, I think, are an A. Early game, they're an S, I think, but they start to fall off towards the end because, one, you don't have as many like easy to kill cavalry units, or if there are cavalry units, they are sort of backed up by some other stuff to keep them healthy. So that whole one-round potential of just having Fran or somebody smack an entire wave with an ice conferral isn't as strong. I will say though, similar to the Sorceress and the Witch, they're just, again, the fact that they are flying, coming back to the Wyvern Master as well, they're both flying, so mobility-wise, they're great. Griffin Masters give the Valor skill to increase speed, and promoted, it is for a group, like an AoE speed boost for 2 Valor, which is insanely strong. You'll see I talk a lot about mobility, Valor skills, and stuff like that. Wyvern Master, their Dragoon Drive, I think, is their Valor skill. It's okay. 3 Valor skill, or Valor points. You dive bomb an area, and you, like, spread out the units. It's okay. Let's see. Next up, we have the Rogue. The Rogue, for me, was interesting. They have, like, a reverse parabolic curve. So, early game, they're really nice because of their dodges. They're really, really strong. Middle of the game, they're sort of okay. When you don't have the promoted, they're like, things start to have True Strike, or things start to attack often enough that you can't dodge everything, right? And their damage isn't that great, and what they offer isn't that great. Until you promote them, they're near the end of the game, and you get the, I think it's called Shadow Bite or Assassin's Bite, where they just inflict a row of blindness on an entire row, which is crazy good. They get AP Seal as well. It becomes a lot nicer. So yeah, it's early game great, mid game yeah, but then they come back towards the late game. Also, pairing up with like a Dark Marquee, somebody that can utilize those blinds is really great for dodge tanks and stuff like that. Speaking of dodge tanks, Feather Swords. So I didn't really use Feather Swords or Oakless in my opinion, in my scenario, that great in my playthrough. They're meant to be dodge tanks, essentially. They can function as regular tanks because their one attack does increase their defense, but I feel like they're a lot better as a dodge tank. They do still have the vulnerability of being a flyer, but again, they also get the advantage of being a flyer, so they're very fast. For me, it's difficult because I didn't really let Oakless shine on her own. I always had her in the back, not being used as an evade tank, but I feel like in certain scenarios where you can get her to dodge, and you can put her up in scenarios where you aren't going up against something with ranged attacks. She can do very well. Legionnaires, so basically hoplites, right? I feel like, again, similar to Fire Emblem, these tanky units have that same issue of early game, they're really strong because they can just tank so much damage, but towards later on in the game, things have more damage. They're more magic users, they're more damage, they're not that great. They're very one-dimensional in that they have one job and they do that job really, really well until they don't. And then once they don't do that job well, they're sort of like, you know, what's the point really of these tankers though? Vanguards surprised me. So at the start of the game, they do seem very lackluster. All they can really do is, you know, arrow block or your flyers. They don't do that much damage, they don't offer that much else. And, you know, for me, it was Lex. I was like, oh, am I really using Lex that much? Once you promote them and once you get them to about, I think it's level 30-ish, where they get Provoke and also the Shield Bash, which increases their defense. Like, that is when they start to become actually good tanks that also do damage. It's the exact opposite of Hoplites and Legionnaires. They're much better later on in the game where they still offer some damage while still being a good tanker as well. Breakers. So, okay, let me also do this. So, these are the classes. D-class is not enough info. Didn't use. So, let me go ahead and say these right now. Breaker, I did not use at all. It felt that they were a bit too slow for me, and the whole wind-up mechanic of they increase their accuracy over time, and then they launch out a big hit. It's really good for breaking through those guarders and people that block, but again, you could just inflict guard block with the druid, so, you know, is it really that necessary? At least, again, that's what I felt. Speaking of breakers, though, and big shields, I didn't use the werebears that... I used them once or twice. I feel like... Let me put them up here. I did use them. And from what I used them, when Legionnaires start to fall off, that's around about where werebears start to, like, shine. They have similar levels of defense, they do a lot more damage, and they have self-sustain as well. So they're basically better Legionnaires. In fact, I might put them up in a B tier. I know going up against them, werebears were very annoying because of how much they can heal back and stuff like that. So yeah, I think they're a lot better than Legionnaires. Bishops, I mean, just healing in general. I don't know if I want to put them in S tier because I feel like it's kind of a given that healing is really good, but at the same time, if you can, ideally you just wipe out an entire team without having to heal. But bishops save me more often than not, so I'll put them up here, especially because they get access to Parting Resurrection, which can be so useful. To just make sure that somebody stays alive at the end of a battle, to allow them to be healed up on like a following battle as well or something, or for a support heal at the end. It's just so useful for having that last minute revive. Doom Knights, however, I absolutely didn't really use. I saw a glimpse of how they can work. Like, again, I did use them once or twice. I'm just not a fan of staying low on health. Like, again, in theory, now that I say Bishop is here, you can always revive them, but I much prefer staying on high health and not risking that. I may as well do the rest of the knights though. Great Knight, I feel like is S tier. Just the fact that they are cavalry, so they deal good damage to infantry, of which there is a lot. And they have so much multi-hitting attacks. Like, they have column attacks with Wild Rush. They have the White Pursuits. It's just, they have so much great damage. They also have the, Cavalry Call. So you increase the attack of the entire row of cavalry. It's just, you will at some point make a squad of like 3 Great Knights, or like 2 Great Knights and like a Sainted Knight, which I'll talk about in a second here. And you will just steamroll and run over everything in your path. You do have to be careful about flyers, of course. Speaking of Sainted Knight, they don't bring as much damage to the table as the Great Knight, but they do bring some nice utility in that they work well with Great Knights because they are also cavalry, so they can take benefit of the cavalry call. They also bring support of healing with row heals and stuff like that, and they can also help deal with the magic attackers with their high resistances. Not the greatest in terms of offense, but they can help round out your Great Knight team, your cavalry squad. Let's see, Werefoxes. Werefoxes, in my opinion, by the time you get them in Bestial, I feel like, maybe it's me, but I felt like I was under nighttime in a lot of battles, more often than not. So, a lot of these Bestials, you can get a lot of benefit out of them, and the most, I feel like, beneficial is the Werefoxes. Getting that increased evasion stats make them just as effective as a rogue. Yes, they don't have the 1 PP to guarantee an evade, but there were so many times where I found myself just being, like, enemy units would have 1% hit rate so many times against my Werefoxes. The other huge thing as well is that they do so much damage, partially through their pursuits, and even their regular attacks. They can poison, they can also guard block if I'm not mistaken, And I put 2 werefoxes in my teams because that's just how much I enjoyed them. Because they have one pursuit attack where it's, I think, on an ally attack, they follow up. They also have another one where on a status infliction, they can follow up again. So normally you can only ever have one conditional activate at the same time. So for example, you can only have one start of battle effect activate, or you can only have one pursuit effect activate. But that's if it's a pursuit on like an attack. I have had multiple times where I would have a regular attack and then one werefox would follow up with the pursuit because of it's a regular attack. But that pursuit itself inflicts like blind, I think, which causes the other werefox to go, oh, you inflicted a status ailment. Let me follow up on that. It's so snowbally and so offensive and oppressive. And while I'm talking about the werefox, the other unit I had 2 werefoxes. I had a furry team. I had a werefox, 2 of them, a werewolf, and a wereowl. I'll put the wereowl and werewolf there together in B tier because wereowl is, again, I'm going to come down to the benefits of this, of the valor out of combat stuff. It is a healing support unit, so you have now heals. They are a bestial, so they get double speed at night. They're a flyer as well, so at nighttime, this wereowl can absolutely schmoove. Speaking of valor as well, the werefox has jump as well, which is great. You can just jump to an ally or enemy even, and that's really nice. Also, vanguards. I didn't mention this. Provoking. You cannot provoke garrisoned units, but you can provoke units out of a ballista or catapult, which I wish I could have done sooner. But yeah, wereowls, they're nice in that they have refresh. So essentially, they're not really that great for healing. I never use them for healing and stuff like that. Wereowls for me were purely for PP refreshes for the werefoxes and werewolves, so that they can carry on attacking, enabling them their damage. Because again, I didn't need to heal because my werefoxes were dodging 24/7. For me, my werewolf though, it was on the duty for using that one item that increases the bestial attack and crit rates. Otherwise though, they do a lot of good damage themselves. They have a regular like row attack that hits everything. They also have quite a few pursuit attacks that also regenerate their own AP or PP if they get kills and stuff like that, which is why I had the wereowl refreshing the PP for the werewolf. But yeah, great damage for them as well. Bestials, I'm not a furry, but they're pretty good. So the sergeant, I feel bad because Chloe is cute and I should have used her a lot. When I first saw sergeants used in like the demo, in the very first battle when you're playing as Virginia, it's like, wait, what? They can just give somebody a guaranteed crit? That sounds so cool. That sounds so great. But then you realize if you're going to rely on crits, they normally have their own high crit rate, or possibly, crits aren't even that valuable. At the start of the game though, they are very nice. I'll put them in B tier because when you get them, when you use them, when you have nothing else, they're great. They have first aid, so they heal. In fact, they're your only source of healing until you get an actual cleric, right? Aside from the paladin, which is, again, I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, they also, they get the chance to throw javelins, so they have some pseudo-ranged attacks. They get flame spears as well, which are nice, but yeah, in terms of their own damage capabilities, it's not that great. They're an enabler, but they only enable one person. They enable like one crit, whereas you have other units that buff up an entire squad, or, they give another unit, like for example, with the refresh, put it up here, they get another full-on attack, which is another crit possibly even. So yeah, Vikings. Similar issue. At the start of the game, I didn't really use them. At the start of the game, they're pretty good, actually. Their extra hits, that one extra hit from their final blow at the end of a round can help out a lot when you don't have a lot of AP and PP. Every little bit of damage can count, so they help out a lot. Actually, I'm going to put them in A tier. And then once you promote them, their 2 Valor skill to regenerate 2 stamina for everyone. It's just so good. That deserves an A tier alone. But then also, they get a lot more damaging skills, in that they have a row attack, which also inflicts defense down. So again, it enables greater damage for the rest of the team on multiple enemies. In fact, yeah, even as a regular house call, they do have the crush, which, what is it called? Lowest defense. So yeah, they're great. They're great. They debuff, they give stamina back, they do damage themselves. It's great. Feather shields, unfortunately, a lot of these, the Albion units, I really didn't get to use that much. Feather staff, what is it? Santiano, the guy that, the bad guy, the guy that I would want to kill, of all people, ends up being forced into your party. Feather shields, I get it. They're magic tanks. Actually, their reflex can be very powerful, but at the same time, why would you want to reflect the mage's attacks when you could just kill the mage straight up, right? And there are ways you can do that. Feather bows, I feel like they're annoying to fight. They're very strong when you fight them because of their blinds, right? That's why I said elven archers are so nice. or druids to sap their PP even. There are other units that do what they can do, if not better. Like, the only benefit they have is that they can blind with PP the back row if they are attacking, right? But again, what you could maybe do is you could have a druid lower their initiative on the back row to like hinder them. There are other ways that you can hinder the opposing team, and for damage wise, feather bows aren't really that great in the damage department. So again, I didn't use them, but I would imagine they are C tier. Elven Fencers. I used a little bit, so the one team I had that used Elven Fencers were, I tried to incorporate my Elven Augur, Elven Sibyl, Elven Fencer, and a Feather Sword up front. The thinking was that Elven Fencer has an ability where you can allow a unit to dodge a ranged attack. And it was really good. It did help out a lot. I actually would put them, it feels, they're not that great. They're bottom of B, but they're definitely not on the tier of the others here. I feel bad the snipers down here. Snipers are good at the start of the game, but they fall off very hard towards the later end when you get Elven Archers and Shield Shooters, just like straight up upgrades of a sniper. But yeah, Elven Fencers, they have some good row attacks as well. They have a very interesting, what is it, like the Earth Column that attacks a column. Doesn't do that much damage, never really did that much for me. But again, they have the benefit of providing evades. So it's kind of like your, well, they Vanguards where they allow a ranged unit to dodge. They do some mixed damage with their magic attacks, so it's okay. Not the greatest, but yeah, definitely low B tier. Berserkers. I feel bad because I only ever use my Berserker for a Warrior's Call in my Flying Griffin unit. The Berserkers themselves have good damage, and if you can let them use their attacks, you know, they're very wide swinging, high hitting. They can also heal themselves, so they're sort of like the Werebear. I guess kind of like the Were-Lion as well. They're good defensively, they can heal up themselves, they have wide swinging attacks, but they're not the best. Landsknecht. So I feel like this is an unpopular opinion. I feel like a lot of people say Landsknechts aren't that great. I think they are amazing. If you put them in a unit that you know will like tank and spank a lot, where they're gonna get hit a lot, Landsknechts can do so much damage. And like just the chaining potential, right? With Killing Chain, the follow-up attack, all you do is you just throw on like glasses on them to increase their accuracy. And every single time somebody gets hit, they will follow up with their 1 PP attack that weakens them. And that gives you the opportunity to maybe even get a kill then with Killing Chain. Or even their 2 AP Bastard's Cross also does a lot of damage as well. Also, I didn't use it in my playthrough, but it was so crazy to me that for one Valor point, the Landsknechts can just summon an extra unit with 3 stamina. And like they're not even that bad. Like they're generic, they're not good, but like if you need something to just tank a hit or like to just deal a little bit of damage, they're great. Otherwise, yeah, I think this will be my tier list. Let me also do this. Let me sort out these uniques in order as well. So for me, Princes and High Lords are near the top tier. Just the fact that their abilities allow you to earn more Valor is so good, because I've been hopping on about how good Valor skills are. Earning more Valor is great. Also, Gilbert having the increased initiative or increased damage with his start of round abilities. Or Elaine having his spin to win. Okay, I will admit, the Prince is definitely major support role. I don't think I had Gilbert attack or kill anything ever. He was always in the Wyvern Master Dragoon dive team. Elaine is sort of okay-ish. This is going to be a common theme for all of these uniques, by the way. Level 30 or 35 is the breakpoint where they suddenly become, this is why they are unique. Otherwise, before then, they sometimes seem okay or lackluster even. Elaine is sort of a weird hybrid of he wants to do damage, but he also wants to tank. At the start, he's a good tank. He's not the greatest tank, but he's okay. He's lacking in the damage upon, but once he gets to level 30, I think it is, where he gets his spin to win, that is where things go crazy. Also, I highly recommend give him a runic blade so he has magic damage to help him beat through armored enemies. Alright, Snow Ranger Unifi, again, only once she's level 30 or once she gets Trinity Rain or Glacial Arrow. But I mean, you get her at like level 25, so it's not that much of a stretch, right? 2-3 battles and you have her at level 30, right? If you feed her the XP. Unifi without the quick impetus gimmick is not that great, I think. Actually, she's okay. She still has the follow-up attack that inflicts freeze, so you can freeze units without you having to use Trinity Rain Cheese. She has some good magical damage as well. Like I said in my review of her, she's good standalone, but she's just even better once you use Glacial Rain and the Quick Impetus Hood. But I feel like it's Almost everybody's gonna do that though, so I still think she's good without it though. Alright, next up is the Elven Augur and Elven Sybil. So Sybil is the Elder Lind. They are very similar. They both follow the same gimmicks of, summon fairies and then board nuke with their level 35 skill. However, Elven Augur, Rosalind, I think is just so much better. Sybil is a much more supportive one. Her starter battle one gives an entire row a heal and 1 debuff immunity. But again, you have debuff immunity with your Elven Archers for the entire team. The Elven Augur, however, stuns an entire row front or back, which is so ridiculously useful. She is also much more attack oriented, so when she does use her board nuke at the end, the Rage of the Fairies, it does so much more damage. But also, yeah, both of them are really good. They have those damaging abilities, but they also have great support in that they can heal as a reactive skill and also cleanse on the same thing, so it's really great. High Priestess feels a bit wonky. They're like a bishop with damage, but I don't really see them using damage that much. Honestly, I would prefer a bishop over a high priestess. Again, because of Parting Resurrection, but I could just give her the staff that you get from Prim, I think, that has Parting Resurrection as a skill. And then she's basically the same thing. She does have a nice sort of pseudo-refresh a la Were Owls, where somebody uses the PP skill on her, she gives 1 PP back to them. So it's really nice. But I very rarely found myself having to be like, wow, I really need this high priestess to do some magic damage for me. Valkyria, really good. Tank that does damage. Again, they have a similar issue of Swordmaster in that they have two shields and only the higher stat shield is equipped. But I feel like shields have much greater alternative buffs or alternative items and stuff like that. Like, for example, you get shields that give plus PP and plus AP. I don't think there are that many swords that can give like a plus PP even. Also, she does crazy good damage. She has anti-flyer, anti-armor, counters up the butt. She can self-heal if she's low enough with her own guard. What else? She's just like such a good self-sustaining unit. Paladin. So this is Joseph. Start of the game, really good. Pursuit. Again, every attack counts early game when you don't have a lot of AP and PP, so it helps out a lot. He has a heal as well. Also, he's over-leveled at the start, so this is more of a Joseph review as opposed to Paladin, but yeah. Start of the game, when he's necessary, when he's useful, he's very useful. Obviously, he falls off very hard once you get to about level 10, 15 with your other units. But by then, he's served his usefulness as a Jagan. He's okay. Dreadnought, I actually did not use at all because I completely forgot to go back and get her from the Colosseum. I think she's nice to have, but she's not necessary. I think she's also going to be similar to the Valkyria in that she can be very tanky. But again, I don't know her. I don't know her skills. I don't know her skill set. I do not know enough to give an informed opinion about her. Were Lions are similar to Berserkers in that they do a lot of damage, they can heal themselves, but they're straight up better than Berserkers, I think. They have AoE attack, like an earthquake attack that hits the entire enemy team. I think they also have stuns as well. Yeah, they're pretty good. Not the best again, but I think my issue with Berserkers and Were Lions are that they have very high HP, and that's their bulk. They don't have a shield, they just have high HP, which again, that's why they have sustain. Then again, you have a Werebear that has high HP and a great shield and also can do damage and also can heal himself. But better than that though is a Dark Marquis. I'm putting them top of Unique. I don't think they're that great. Actually, no. I do think that they are that great. Snow Ranger, I'm going to bump down a bit because again, my issue with Unify is that I used and abused her Glacial Rain. Without Glacial Rain, I don't know how useful she would have been. However, High Lord, Valkyria, or specifically Valkyria and Dark Marquis, they were not one-dimensional. I could throw them into a lot of different, unique, varying scenarios, and they would always consistently come out top. I mean, again, same thing with Snow Ranger, but it was just so fascinating to me that without relying on a cheese, quick impetus, freeze gimmick, the Dark Marquis and Valkyria can tank and spank. They can take hits very well and still deal a lot of damage. So Berengaria is just very nice in that she can have a lot of follow-up attacks. The Pursuit that if somebody has an affliction, she gets back that PP, which again, it is so easy to inflict afflictions, right? You have Druids, you have Rogues. Rogues and Dark Marquis work very nicely together. You just inflict something on them, and then you have pseudo-infinite, follow-up attacks. Also, you have increased damage, you have the Splinter Winds that stun. She's just so strong. She has good AoE damage, she has good single target damage. She can tank hits. In fact, she wants to tank hits even because, again, I think she has like some PP where, yeah, when she blocks an attack, she gets back AP, I think even. So she wants to get attacked. Like my bread and butter, like one of my favorite teams that wasn't a gimmick team was my Berengaria team, which was Berengaria, a druid, a Lanchnecht, because again, she's gonna get hit a lot, which allows you to do a lot of follow-up attacks, as well as a shield shooter. So like 3 big shield users. Shield shooter as well helps deal with those flyers, can also tank out, can also heal the Dark Marquis if they get low enough with aid cover. The shield shooter can also inflict poison bolt attacks, so there's your afflictions. They also can pursuit themselves, so it's just so incredibly strong. Like, shield shooter shoots with the poison bolt, Dark Marquis follows up with sanguine pursuit. Dark Marquis attacks with a regular attack, shield shooter follows up with pursuit. Somebody attacks the Dark Marquis, Lanchnecht comes up with the following slash. It's just so good for tanking and spanking. And then once you get 5 units, you throw in a rogue to blind a unit, also dodge tank themselves, and it just becomes so incredibly strong. But alright, hopefully though, I try to keep this as short as possible. I don't want to go too in-depth and like talk too much about stuff like this, because I feel like that's always an issue with these types of videos. But I see now why it's easy for tier lists to go on quite a while. You just want to keep on talking about stuff, like the Dark Marquis and how strong they are. But yeah, last quick review here. Let's see, uniques. Let's put them back up. Actually, I'm going to keep them at the bottom. I didn't use Berserk, Breakers, Feather Shields, or Feather Staffs at all. Feather Bows are sort of meh. They're overpowered by Shield Shooters, as well as Elven Archers, and the utility they provide can be done by Rogues or Druids. Doom Knight, there are better Knights. Legionnaires, good early game as Hoplites, but fall off towards the end. Snipers, good early game to deal with those pesky, what is it called? Evaders and flyers, but again, shield shooters just outmatch them. Sword masters, I feel bad. I want to put them low C. They don't do that much damage. They're single target only. They have no utility for the rest of the team. They're very selfish. You would have to invest a lot to make a sword master do well. Elven fencers are good. They do some decent damage. They have mixed attacks. They have some nice support skills. Berserkers, they have some good wide hitting attacks. They can tank themselves a bit because of their high health. Werewolves, great attacks, a lot of follow-ups, a lot of damage. Sainted Knights, Cavalry, they can heal up a lot, so they provide some nice utility for Great Knights. They have resistances for the magic attackers. They also do decent damage. Werebears, nice and tanky while doing decent damage as well. They can heal themselves, so they're self-sustaining. Vanguards, early game, they're nice for blocking arrows. Mid game, meh. Provoking is very nice. Late game, they have Provoke as well again in battle. And they have Shield Bash. Elven Archers, pretty much a sniper, but they also can do mixed, or yeah, magical damage. But actually, should I put them in A tier? They also have a very nice heal at the end, where if they get healed, they distribute that heal. So that's another form of utility. Yeah, let me put Elven Archers up there. They also can cleanse or provide immunity for everyone. Sergeants, early game they're nice, they can heal up, but again, towards the later end of the game, they can benefit and help out a unit, but only one unit. So yeah. Were Owls, very nice in terms of overworld mobility because they are a flying Bestial. They're a support healer. They have Refresh to enable somebody else to carry on with their PP shenanigans. Oh yeah, and like for healing, all I ever gave the Were Owl was the overheal staff. Like I didn't even use the Were Owl's built-in AP skills. That just shows you why items make the team. Vikings, really nice early game. Follow-up attacks at the end of the battle with the 1 PP attack. Every attack counts. Defense drops. Promote them, even better. Not Valor. AoE Valor skill that restores stamina. A row attack that lowers defense. It's great. Lanchnecht, a lot of damage potential. A lot of chain killing. Maybe not the best. Actually, no, yeah, I like them. Yeah, fuck it. It's my tier list. I say they're good, they're good. Werefoxes, crazy good evasions. Crazy good attack. A lot of follow-up skills. There's just so much damage. Jump as well. They're very fast. Feather Swords, okay. I see room for dodge tanking if you actually put them up in front, unlike me who has them in the back the entire time. Rogues, early game, dodges, best form of tanking essentially. Late game, they come back again with blinding to just enable anybody to dodge tank in theory. Griffin Masters, start of the game, very nice. They're flying, they have the speed increase. Wyvern Master, yes, Dragoon Dive puts them in S tier, but you won't always have Dragoon Dive. Warlocks, good early game because of the Flame Burn, but again, that's an item. But it is restricted to Warlocks. They also have good magic damage in general. One of the best magic damage users. Sorceress, not as strong as a Warlock on the battle, but the teleports. It's all about the teleports. S tier. It feels weird having Great Knight be in S tier. But again though, like, if I have to come back to how I put Dark Marquis up here, the Great Knight was just so good in so many varying different scenarios, whereas some others seemed very one-dimensional. Actually, in fact, you know what? Werefoxes and Rogues were also really good. Okay, last minute last minute thing, I put Werefox and Rogues up there because this is my personal opinion. Last minute, I come in, I'm like, okay, I roll out on Werefoxes a lot in... Actually, yeah. Werefoxes more than Rogues. I roll out on Werefoxes so much in Bastorius and Albion that I think they deserve an S tier. Bishops, the healing is just... It's healing. You need healing. Parting Resurrection, also very nice. Shield Shooter, I only ever used one, so it's weird to say that they're S tier. The issue with this Unicorn Overlord tier list is that unless you have a unit that is literally multiple of the same class, like for example my Great Knight unit or my double Werefox unit, it's hard to say that a Shield Shooter is S tier because I feel like they were also only strong because I put them with a Dark Marquis and a Landsknecht and a Druid. Otherwise though, a Druid definitely. Any team that I put them in would have done well. But yeah, Shield Shooter, I feel like if I were to play the game again and I were to use less uniques and fill up my units with more generics, I would definitely invest in more Shield Shooters. Actually, yeah, here's a way to prove why I think Great Knights, Werefoxes, Bishops, Sorceresses, and Druids even to an extent are S tier for me. In my playthrough, I only ever recruited a Flyer, and that was just so I could get one early. Once I got my uniques, I replaced them. I only ever recruited extra Witches, extra Druids, extra Werefoxes, extra Great Knights, extra Bishops, and I never recruited more Shield Shooters, but I definitely feel like I would have. Otherwise, yeah, I think though, that is my tier list for Unicorn Overlord. Hopefully, you don't agree, so that I can actually get to see other opinions, because I would love to hear why you think, oh my gosh, Swordmasters are actually crazy OP. In fact, I do know. I have seen a clip where somebody had a unit where a single Swordmaster, like, beat the final boss. Like, in one round. Essentially, it was a unit designed specifically to kill the final boss. It wouldn't work anywhere else, but it just shows that there is potential for some of these units. But yeah, I think that's my tier list. Hopefully you can all have some civilized arguments in the comments down below. Until next time, bye bye.